Good morning. Good morning, LinkedIn Live. Good morning. We are live. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope you had a good week. Good morning, Elaine. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing? How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. For those of you that don't know, Elaine Hughes, please go out and check Elaine's profile on LinkedIn. Elaine is a disability inclusion consultant. She's also an e-commerce expert, actually. We might get into that a little bit. So she's an entrepreneur, but is now working in the space of disability inclusion. I think it's right to say, did we first meet on Clubhouse, on that very famous app that no longer is really the thing where people are hanging out?
I was on Clubhouse quite regularly. I mean, I met yourself on Clubhouse and shared many rooms with you. So
Yeah.
it was good back in the day. It's kind of gone downhill a bit, but yeah, it was really good when it first started.
It was we did share a few stages, actually, thinking about it, Elaine. You sort of brought that back. Interestingly, I think that I don't know whether you've used the new audio or you've seen anybody doing the audio stuff on LinkedIn, but it actually kind of reminded me of Clubhouse, the
Yeah.
do these audio live sessions. But anyway, Clubhouse app, we'll save that for another day. Do you want to just tell us a little bit more about your background, Elaine, just briefly, in terms of, like, your e-commerce stuff and how you've gotten to here in terms of your disability inclusion?
Yeah. So hi, good morning, welcome everybody. So I'm Elaine. I was born with spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, and I worked for most of my life. And then at 32, I found myself medically retired from the DWP, quite ironically. And I had to come up with a way to make money. So I just was recovering from a major operation, and I was kind of laid up in bed. And I literally started selling stuff on eBay, put a few things on eBay just to get some extra kit changing, and I got hooked. And 15 years later, I built an e-commerce business through that. I had a shop, had a bricks and mortar store, moved everything back online, and I was basically in the cake and chocolate industry with my daughter. So me and my daughter both ran that, and we had a really good lifestyle out of it. And it afforded me a lot of the ability to travel, which I love doing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I realised that, especially in the luxury sector, they weren't catering for people with disabilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
To go to places was very difficult. So last year, unfortunately, I had a heart condition, and I had to take things. So I gave up my e-commerce, and I moved more into disability inclusion, and working specifically with corporates and luxury sectors to really help and make it inclusive, because I do believe that they're missing out on some vital tricks that,
Yeah.
and just trying to really change that kind of space.
Yeah. And working with luxury sectors, I love that. When we were sort of talking in the prep, and so first of all, your story about how you got into the e-commerce, it reminded me of Sophia Amoruso from
Mm.
Nasty Gal. I don't know whether you've
Yeah.
looked into her story, but yeah, it definitely reminded me of Nasty Gal. And so, good morning. We've got a couple of people that I know have joined us. Let me just see if I can see these comments on here. Good morning, Stella. How are you doing? It's an important topic. It really is. We're really going to get into the conversation. It's going to be a really good one. And I love, Elaine, what you were saying there about the luxury buyers and luxury buying. So what I'm guessing, I'm not going to say that you're bougie, Elaine, but here's the thing. So you said that you like travel. Some of the statistics, and we were talking about this before we came on. So if anybody's looking for some resources, the Business Disability Forum, who you can find on businessdisabilityforum.org.uk, did a report last year of the spending power of people with disabilities in the UK. It's 274 billion pounds, right? So this is no small market. And obviously, when it comes to inclusion, there is, as we say, there is an economic case, and there is a business case, and there is a moral case, as in doing the right thing. And also there is a disability employment gap. So let's just get into some of the conversation, Elaine. What do you think some of the barriers are that people living with disabilities face as consumers? So what are some of the barriers that disabled people are facing as consumers?
Okay, so on average, a disabled person will hit a website and leave within 6 seconds. It's not
Right.
accessible. So most websites, nowadays are not accessible to people with disabilities. There's actually been a law that's been passed in the US, I believe it's 2025, where all websites have to be disabled accessible. There's no plans in the UK to make all websites accessible for people with disabilities. So we're quite so as the UK as a whole, we're lagging quite behind. The countries out there who do things who do and recognise disability a lot better than we do. And if you're not represented on adverts or television, or if you're not marketed to, then people aren't going to buy from you. You know, and like you said, 274 billion pounds a year in the UK alone, 17 trillion worldwide, globally, is lost each year of businesses who don't market to disabled beauty, and that can be anything from clothing, so adaptive, disabled people need adaptive clothing, shoes, chocolates. There's a whole range of things that you could do. Kitchen design, house design. There's so many areas that we need help in. Companies don't market to us. They don't. And most of the employees that I speak to, or companies that I speak to, when I say to them, "What is your disabled person, customer's journey?" they have no clue, because obviously, as a business, we all create client avatars of your ideal client, and many companies will not create a disabled client, so they have no idea. And I'm like, well, how do I access your services? How do you make you're making a woman or a male, or somebody, you're making all these people, these avatars feel welcomed. How do I, as a disabled person, feel welcome in your company? So we need to collectively ask ourselves, why aren't we promoting to that community? What kind of conscious biases do we have around disability? What are we, how do we make it move forward?
And why do you think? So we're going to get a lot into the why and sort of the stigmas and things like that still exist. But why do you think it is that organisations just aren't thinking about disabled people when it comes to, designing and developing products and services, and then the marketing of them? Why do you think that is? What do you think sits at the heart of it?
I think because systemically, the narrative is that disabled people have no value.
Right.
So there's narrative, especially in the UK, obviously with the benefit system, that disabled people have no spending power.
Yeah.
That they have no spending. They have no value to your business. When in actual fact, it's wrong. So people have huge spending power. They're keeping the economy buoyant. They're out shopping in a day, whether it's physically or they're doing it online. Do you know what I'm saying? So they are shopping and stuff. A lot of stuff that I buy personally from shops, I have to go and get adapted. So I'm giving my stuff to people who sew to keep there's lots of things to do, whether it's paying for carers or assessments around the house. So we're pumping money into the economy, but if a business doesn't see the value, then you're not going to market to them.
Yeah, and it's a funny one. Do you know what? Because sometimes when I go into organisations, sometimes the leadership team are very much in the space of don't tell us, we don't need to be convinced of the business case. We want to do this because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes I hear that, but I know that unless it's a not-for-profit or it's a social sector, I know that people, if it's a business, they need to be convinced of the business case, right? I get that. So in terms of what you're saying there, actually, morning, Maxine, that one of the barriers being businesses don't see the value. They don't realise that people with disabilities have the spending power. I think that really resonates, definitely.
Yeah, I think you have to show people that that disabled people have have value in their spending, but also as employees as well. What are the benefits of employing somebody with a disability? And that can range from a whole host of things. From disabled people tend to be more adaptable. Because we've had to adapt our lives for our disabilities, so we tend to think we are more productive when it comes to working. We can do a lot more in an hour. We're less likely to take time off sick because we've managed to learn to manage our conditions.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, so there's all these things there's all these benefits. But unless you're willing to learn it or investigate it, you won't.
And you know, if we talk there, just you mentioned about employment, there is this thing, if anybody hasn't heard of it, something called the disability employment gap, which there are targets around. So at the moment, well, towards the end of 2022, the employment rate for people with disabilities is 52.6% in the UK, compared to 82.5% for people living without disabilities, and the unemployment rate is 7.2% for people with disabilities, compared to 3.2% for people without disabilities. So there is definitely a big gap. And as you say, Elaine, a real opportunity that organisations are missing out on.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, in terms of stats, like 1 in 5 employers will not take on a person with a disability.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I'm saying that's slightly higher for someone with a physical disability.
Yeah.
And you know, and what is that? Well, what I mean, yeah, and you know, even more so, a person with a disability who has a hidden disability will not tell their employer they have a disability because they have a fear of being sacked. So just saying, so you may have people in your workforce who have disabilities, whether it be hidden or whatever, who refuse to tell their employer because they're fearful of consequences. So we need to have an open conversation around it, you know,
Yeah.
and break down these stigmas and work out why, you know, how to be more inclusive.
And let's talk about the point of stigma, because I remember a couple of years ago, in fact, it was during lockdown. I did a book club. Everybody knows that I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to book clubs. I did a book club on Francesca Martinez's book, which is
Mhm.
called "What the F is Normal." Won't say the full word.
Yeah.
But she's brilliant. Francesca has cerebral palsy, and she actually joined the book club, which is great. You know, and I always say to people, if you're thinking of starting book clubs in your organisations for your, you know, employee resource groups, or invite the authors in because they love talking about their books. So she came in. You know, we had this conversation. But the thing about the stigma, and the thing I loved about her book was about self acceptance,
Mhm.
regardless of whether you had a disability or didn't have a disability. It was about the message was self-acceptance, no such thing as normal. Why do you think there is still this stigma around particularly physical disability, um, in the way that there isn't, for example, with something like mental health? Should we talk about that?
I think at the moment is a buzzword. I mean, yeah, as you
Yeah.
said, kind of like pre-show. I this is just my belief. I mean, I could be wrong, but I believe that over the years I've noticed it that, you know, disabled people who are physical disabled make people feel uncomfortable. If you're talking to somebody who's got anxiety or mental, outwardly they look normal to you. So you're seeing you're seeing yourself being represented in that person to an
Mm.
extent. You can understand, you can live there. However, if you've got somebody who's sitting there in a wheelchair who's like me, who's got, you know, a major physical disability, that make you feel uncomfortable. I'm not here to make you feel comfortable. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm just living my life, just saying. But you know, how do you get over that? You know, and that's down to your unconscious biases and all the rest of it. And that's what you've got to work on. But I'm not a threat to you. Or, I mean, you know, I just because I was born with a physical disability. I mean, it just makes people feel they're not sure how to interact or react or to do to that conversation.
Yeah, there is, you know, something we were talking about. The one thing that I would say when it comes to like unconscious bias and how people can get more comfortable with people that aren't like them, and that could be, you know, somebody that's of a different race or ethnicity, and sometimes you have both. You know, we were talking before the show in terms of the intersection, you know, somebody who is a different color and they have a disability, you know, and how people do or don't feel uncomfortable. The tip that I always give to people is expose yourself more to individuals that aren't like you, and that
Mhm.
tends to kind of take away some of that discomfort. So you start to get more comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah. And then
Yeah,
just,
so
yeah,
let's get you. It's like the narrative that all disabled people are wheelchair users. You
yeah,
know, whenever you see a picture, you always see the wheelchair.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, no, there's still people out there who don't use wheelchairs but still have mobility issues. There's still
yeah.
people out there who you know can walk. You know what I mean? So it's that with this, but the perception is, oh, they're a wheelchair user. No, not all disabled people with wheelchair users. Yes, I mean, yes, it's factors, but we don't really, there's people that they were amputees, there's deaf community, there's all different communities out there, and I think we need to just educate yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and also we need and ask questions. I mean, I'm very much about saying to people, ask me a question. I don't mind. There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong question. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit there and be offended by it. It's also in terms of words of language as well. I know everyone. Some people use the word differently abled. Some people use. You know what I mean? For me, I'm quite attached to the word disabled. I'm not offended by it, because my thinking is I can't run. I've never been able to run. I can't do it differently. If I sit in a wheelchair, I'm not running. If I'm on someone's back, I'm not running. I can't run, so therefore I'm disabled from that sport. I'm not. You know what I mean? But so I think, don't feel that you're going to offend me by coming to say to me, "Oh, you're a disabled person." No, I embrace it. I'm happy. I think for me personally, I embrace it. I embrace being disabled because if I hadn't been disabled, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. And and in terms of what you said about the questions, I think sometimes we kind of get a little bit scared or reluctant to ask people questions about their own lived experience when it's different to ours, and particularly when it's historically a sort of stigmatized or marginalized identity. We get so sort of precious or sensitive about even having the conversation. But as you say, otherwise we don't always then get the richness actually of interacting with people who are different to us.
Exactly. I mean, if you've got a workforce and you're not employing disabled people, then how do you know how do you know they function? How do you know how they work? You're not employing it. I mean, you need to be open minded to employ people with disabilities.
And specifically on the topic of employment, if we just move on to that, what are some of the things that organisations should be doing in terms of employing disabled people? And I say that right at the start in terms of like whether it be the attraction all the way through to the process, and then like the onboarding and making sure that they feel included. From your perspective, what does that look like? What organisations that are doing it well? What are the sorts of things that they're doing?
Okay. Well, in terms of employing, it doesn't have to be expensive. I want to break that down this myth. A lot of people that employers I've spoken to, they're like, well, if I employ a disabled person, I've got to get adaptations. Not necessarily. I mean, yes, I mean, there may be cases of applying a ramp, but it doesn't have to be big. I mean, obviously, depending on the person's disability, I would always say involve the person that you're hiring with disability into the conversation to see what works for them. But it could be simple things from, by getting fatter pens. So somebody in your workforce who's got arthritis would really appreciate a fatter pen versus a thin biro. I mean, it's less stress on their hands. Making it more adaptable. Think about the workplace layout. I'm saying, creating when I had my shop, we used to have a space where people who were suffering an anxiety attack or mental health crisis, they could come in. It was like a safe space. So they could actually just come in, sit down, gather their thoughts. Most people just left. They kind of sat there for a few minutes, gather their thoughts, and they left. Sometimes they would say, "Look, could you call somebody?" When someone would come pick them up. But just thinking about what you're having that conversation about what you can actually do and how to make it more inclusive to that people. And then what you'll naturally find is that people will navigate. Disabled buyers will then navigate to your business because they will see themselves being reflected within that business.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that you said there about people navigate to you if they see that you are doing the right things, and I loved what you said as well about if, for example, you hire somebody that has a disability, talking with them to co-create the adaptation, so including them in that conversation of what's needed.
Exactly. You got stuff like the access to work grants that are available that a lot of employers don't even know about. Do you know what I mean? That can help facilitate big expenses to make that place more accessible for people with disability. It's like with the lockdown. I was laughing because prior to lockdown, I was always saying, look, we need to have flexible working patterns. We need to allow people to work. No, it can't be doing. lockdown comes, boom, everyone's working from home. And I'm like, I've not been saying this like 10 years beforehand. I mean, and I was constantly told, no, you can't do that. It's too much stress. It's too much hassle. We need people. And I'm like, do you know how many disabled people got back into the workforce by through remote working?
Yeah.
Because they could work from home. They could,
Yeah.
for me, because of my condition and managing my health, I know my levels. So I know in the mornings I've got lots of energy. So I can do lots of things in the mornings, be really busy. Then in the afternoon, I can take it off and just rest and recuperate. Lots of disabled people work that kind of method.
It's interesting. So Stella has put this point here. Education is key. Being curious, so which links back to what you were saying, Elaine, about the asking questions and not necessarily just of the person with the disabilities, but just around this topic as a whole. And we've mentioned some resources. So education is key. So many people and companies are scared to get it wrong, and I think that's right when it comes to any stigmatized identity. It's the same as conversations about race and ethnicity. Similar, not exactly the same. But people are scared to get it wrong, so sometimes they don't say anything. Companies need to incorporate this into their programs and their cultures. The employee journey needs to be readdressed for inclusion and belonging. I'm disabled and work within the HR and DE&I space in hospitality and can see huge benefits of being inclusive, as in walking the talk, for both workforce and disabled guests and customers. Thank you so much for that, Stella. And it really is, I love that you bring up education. I think we're going to come back to that as well. But there's this thing about seeing it very holistically in terms of internally, so for the workforce, etc., and then externally in terms of guests and customers and other stakeholders. And the employee journey thing, I think, is so key. I mean, you said, Elaine, something before about accessibility of websites. One of the things I talk to organizations about is when you're doing your sort of like attraction strategies, so in terms of the hiring, there's the website, but even before that, when you think about the lots of organizations use feeder websites, like Total Jobs or Feed or whatever, but actually it's thinking about, okay, but who are those feeder channels and how accessible are they? Are they going to hit the right people, or actually do we need to partner with a non-profit organisation or a disability rights organisation that can get our jobs out into the market?
It's finding your community, but also it's about making yourself attractive to people with disabilities. So for me personally, I would say, when I was working, I found that when I was working in this department for pleasure, so I was frontline benefits desk, and a lot of people navigated to me as a disabled person because they saw me there, sitting there. So I would get a lot of disabled people to, excuse me, can I talk to you? And the same old question that would having the conversation with them, it was the same kind of things came up. Oh, that had to do with me. They don't understand my needs. And you so it's about language. It's about involving, saying to, reaching into disabled communities and saying, look, we want to hire people with disabled people, because some people want to work. They want to work, and they are quite open. I mean, a lot of the people that I know, are creating their own businesses from home not because they want to create their own businesses, but because they can't get a job. I couldn't get. That's why I was medically retired from I couldn't get a job because people, even though I was qualified as management and leading a team, people could not see past my disability. And I'm just one person. So collectively, there's things like just over, I think it's like 8 billion people around the world disabled. You know what I mean? It's a massive it's a massive community, and that's ranging from all kinds of disabilities. So I think you need to just think about what you're talking about. There's lots. I know lots of disabled people who are creatives. I know some people who are with management, and they're all lacking because employers just do not see the value. So you need to say to employers, they have value. They can make you obviously ultimately, I'm sorry to say hard, but it's profit led.
Well, exactly. And the economic case, the business case, and obviously part of the economic case and the business case behind diversity and inclusion is that by having a very diverse workforce, you are better able to then understand a diverse customer base, right? So even just that advantage of, you know, we talked at the top of this session about the UK market on its own in terms of spending power being 274 billion. It's almost like the economic case is, if you want to understand those customers that have that money to spend, you've got a better chance if you actually have people in your teams that represent those customers, right? It's not rocket science, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's about taking a slice of the pie, isn't it? It's whether you want to take it to that market.
Yeah,
Okay, you may have to change some things in your business, but you can still market effectively to people with disabilities. I do believe that I don't buy this concept. I think you need see what you see. To get a better and more inclusive workforce, not just about having ethnic. I know there's a lot of work about ethnic, ethnicity and stuff like that. But there's not enough done about having people with disabilities, people in your premises. There's not. It goes further there. Or just think about if your market, if you're selling products, whether you're in the fashion industry, whether you are, creating kitchens, accessible kitchens, or whether you're a landlord adapting your properties to make it accessible for disabled people. Do you know what I mean? Insurance companies who don't provide insurance for disabled people. That's a huge sector that needs that is underrepresented. We need insurance too. Do you know what I mean? We go on holiday. Whether it's airlines who need to make it more accessible for people with disabled people. There's lots of things you can do because we are all consumers.
yeah,
I travel all the time. I buy stuff. I want to be able to, London, getting around London is is incredibly difficult as a disabled person. But just even thinking, more ramps, these spaces, it's just having this. We're part of the community. And I think we need, as society, we need to recognise that there are still people out there.
yeah.
We need a bit more. Think a bit more. What can you do to make things a little bit better?
Definitely. And I think just by, us having this conversation, hopefully it will spark lots of ideas. I hope people really share this conversation widely. Please share the link. Stella says here, thank you, Elaine, for your voice in this space. It's so valuable and insightful. People need to reach out to you within our hospitality sector. Absolutely, especially, Elaine, because you're a big traveler, as I love traveling, and I love sort of staying in nice places, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, there's a real kind of market for businesses that really get this and really understand it. So before we wrap up, where can people find you? How can people connect with you if they want to work with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Hughes Elaine M on LinkedIn, or you can get me on my website, which is www.elainemh.com, or you send me an email at elaine@elainemh.com. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's great.
Oh, thank you so much. And then got a few messages coming in, a few thank yous. Thank you for joining us, Maxine. Yeah, no, it's been absolutely brilliant, and hopefully people have taken away a few tips as well. But if you want to find out more, please do get in touch with Elaine, because I think I love almost like the fresh perspective that you're bringing into this space, and this is what these lives are about. So yeah, please do get in touch with Elaine. We don't want to think about disability just as this kind of infantilized space of people that don't have value, right? This is, there's an economic case, there's a moral case. This is people with disabilities as employees, colleagues.
Also, for your profits, say we are very, some key things to remember. We're adaptable, so we're great at adapting new products. We take less time off. so overall, the lifetime, we tend to be more brand loyal. So if you are improving the sales person, they tend to stay with you for the duration. So you're going to get more work out of them. We are flexible in our approaches. We are great thinkers. We have to rethink. I know for me, my disability and my fatigue levels, I'm constantly having to rethink things and come up with new ideas and new plans of how to do stuff. So we have all these great skills that you can tap into, whether it's on a full-time basis or a freelance basis. So you can think about how your business can be inclusive.
And to the resources, just before we go, so I'm just going to drop in a couple of resources. So obviously I talked about the reports from businessdisabilityforum.org.uk. If anybody's into their books, you know, I'm into books. So there's the book by Francesca Martinez, What the F is Normal. There's another book called Disability Visibility, which I would recommend as well, that looks at intersectionality and also a bit like Elaine saying, you know, opportunities and all of those sorts of things as well, just as well as lived experience. So
can I also say really quickly,
yeah.
you know, please don't forget as well as employers to think about your carers. There's people you've got staff who are carers to people.
Yeah.
So please think about them, obviously, and try and put things in place for them, whether it be flexible working hours, because even though they're not got a physical disability themselves or deal with a disability, they may well be caring for an individual family member who has a disability.
Yeah.
So they need some support as well.
Definitely. That's a really good point. And actually, at the moment, I'm just really trying to encourage staff networks and employee resource groups to work, you know, in tandem more so. And, you know, that's a perfect one. So if you have got an employee resource group, which is a, for example, a staff disability network, you know, get them working with the carers network and sort of talking about and learning from each other. It's a great point, Elaine. So Elaine, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
It's been really good to have like a face-to-face conversation rather than the old Clubhouse audio days.
Indeed. It was good fun though. It was very good fun.
Wasn't it? Okay, perfect. All right, Elaine, have a fantastic day. Everybody that's listening on LinkedIn Live, or if you're listening back, thank you so much for tuning in. Please do reach out to Elaine if you want some more help in this space. Take care, guys. Have a good Friday. Bye.
Bye.